What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And Gunner, and there's BM, and the dude Brandon from Central Cali channel, whatever it is. Family court, the paperwork is all that I've been hearing about for the last few days, and so people keep getting at me, right? Want me to do a video, and I hesitate to do this. Obviously, if you guys are seeing it, then I've chose to upload it, right? And I hesitate to do it because I just don't feel like this is a healthy conversation to be having for anybody across the board. There is a child involved. It is a current case. And I don't mean that in the technical sense of when is the next court date? Is it resolved? Is it not resolved? It's current as in there is an issue right now, currently, in terms of this child and her parents and her situation. And I just don't in any way think that that conversation is a conversation that should be being had on social media. And yet here I am, right? Here I am. So why? For one, people aren't going to stop asking me about it. I've done videos in terms of like court paperwork and legal stuff, and I have talked about folks that have abused women and that kind of stuff in the past. So it's an arena that I'm comfortable in. I think I've earned a level of credibility when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't come on here and put bogus jackets on people or make up shit. So I get it, and I don't have a problem addressing that kind of stuff. I also have some personal experience with family court, both as a father, and having to go through family court with my kid's mom, as somebody who has helped friends and family members in their family court paperwork and their family court situations, and also as a child who was very much a product of the family court system from a very young age and experienced all kinds of toxic shit that happened between my parents and the system and me being in the system. And so the more I hear about this, the last few days, the more different things resonate with me. And that's what's sort of tipped the scale for me in terms of doing this video. We have the paperwork, right? The only paperwork that's been made available. And I'm gonna go over that in a minute. I want to be clear. I speak from my experiences. I feel like it should go without saying that doesn't mean I know everything. Um, People shouldn't have to come on here and remind you guys, hey, I'm not perfect, or hey, I don't know everything, or hey, whatever. Like that should be a given because that's true for everybody. Uh, so I can only serve from my experiences and my knowledge base, right? I really do try to stay in my own lane when I come on here and talk about stuff. And so anyways, man, let's get into this. I first heard about this situation from Chemo's Flicks a couple days ago. He had done a couple videos. I had no knowledge of any of this family court stuff or allegations or anything else involving Gunner in this conversation before I saw that video. And I was like, man, what the hell is this? This is wild. And so then I went and I kind of followed up a little bit. I went back and saw Gunner's video where he talked about him coming out to California and why he was out here. And then I went to Brandon's page, the Central Cali goddess, the baby's mama, and her dude. I went to his page and seen some of the stuff that he had posted. I went to Cali Legend Media, shout out Lucky from Maravilla. I just like his channel, period. I'm subscribed. I catch a lot of his content. And so I went over there and saw what he said. I saw Dubs' video, sticking up for his friend. And then I'd heard, there was going to be this live. There was a live, yesterday, day before, whatever, and there was a whole stack of paperwork shown on Brandon's page, where he's like, "Look, man, we got all kinds of paperwork. We just got to get it cleared from the attorneys in terms of what we can show and what we can't show." And there's serious allegations being made. What I consider to be serious allegations. And so I was like, man, with that stack of paperwork, I know that there's very little paperwork that you cannot show online, especially when you're a party to the case. Now, whether it's wise to show it online or not is a whole different subject. But in terms of legally, what can you do and what can't you do? There's not much that you can't show, right? Now, when it's involving a child, you want to protect the identity of the child, that kind of stuff. But just as they did with this paperwork where they blocked out some names, but were able to show the substance of it, I was like, man, with all these allegations, I expect to see some paperwork, right? Some real paperwork. And then I was on their live earlier. Well, this will get posted in the morning. So, I was on their live last night, the Brandon's live, and it's the minute order, right? It's just 2 pages. And it doesn't say a whole lot. It does say some things, and we'll get into that, but it didn't measure up to what was being advertised, at least in my opinion. What I had expected to see is not what was shown. I was like, what kind of shit is this? And there was stuff said there that I just know is not true, right? And here's the thing: if on this thing called YouTube and social media in general, there's a range in terms of truth and bullshit, right? The line between fact and fiction is blurred by some more than others. And my opinion, at least, and it hasn't always been my opinion, but it's kind of where I stand now, is folks want to come on and tell their stories or their experiences or whatever. If it's true, if it's not true, it's their channel, it's their story. Who cares? Let the audience decide for themselves. Some of the audience is looking for truth. Some of the audience is looking for entertainment. People have their own reasons that they come on here and they click on the channels that they click on and they watch what they watch. Far be it for me to tell anybody else what they should be on here looking for or watching or not watching or whatever. But when you make a specific accusation about somebody, especially an accusation that involves harming a child, which I think is about as low as you can get, then I expect you to be able to support that, to be able to back that up. And that hasn't happened, in my opinion. And I'm not here defending Gunner. For those that have been around YouTube for a while, you know that Gunner and I are not friends. We have had our issues in the past. We have said stuff about each other in the past. It is what it is, right? I don't, I don't hate the dude. I don't count him my enemy. Like, it's not that serious to me anymore. I've just gotten to a place where I'm like, people on YouTube are gonna, make whatever content they make, and I choose to watch what I choose to watch. And so this isn't gonna be a video like the video that Dubs did, right? They're friends, right? According to both of them, they're friends. So I would expect that. I jump in the live over there sometimes on Dubs' channel when they're live together, and it's cordial, and I appreciate that. I talk to Dubs sometimes, and that's always cordial. I think mutually respectful conversation, and again, and I appreciate that. But so this is not a defense of Gunner video, and I'm also not though gonna say, well, because I've had issues with him in the past and some of the stuff that he said in the past, that I'm just gonna jump to the conclusion that yeah, he probably beat his kid. That's a very specific accusation. It's a very serious accusation, and I got a hole in my shirt right here. Down. That's a very specific accusation and a very damaging one, and I just don't jump on the bandwagon with stuff like that. And I haven't seen anything to now that supports those allegations. But so let me tell you something real quick about family court. Okay. Family court paperwork is very different than criminal court paperwork. And a lot of you guys know this. A lot of you guys have been through this, but I'm sure some of you haven't, and if you haven't, then God bless you, right? Be thankful. But a quick little story. Like I said, some of the stuff is kind of personal for me. So I've never been accused of harming my children. Um, I haven't harmed my children, and thankfully I haven't been accused of it. But I was accused by my kid's mom of creating an unsafe environment for them. And I was set to go pick them up. And then I got notice that she filed, temporary orders and emergency protection orders. And I wasn't going to be able to pick them up until we had this hearing and all this other stuff. Because I had created, in her view, I had created an unsafe environment for them. My kids were no longer safe for me. And the rationale for this is before I came on YouTube. When I first came on YouTube, I was still dealing with some of the residuals of the family court stuff, but for the most part, all that stuff was resolved already before I came on here. But still, people posted the papers and posted my address and posted I was going to court and told all these different stories. And when you choose to come on here and share about yourself and your stories and your experiences, you have to expect that other people are going to come on here and want to speak about what they think of you or what they've heard about you or whatever the case may be, right? And it just kind of comes with the territory, So this stuff definitely is not for everybody. But so I went through all that, when I first came on here, and the reality of it though is this: when my kid's mom and I separated, I went through a little midlife crisis, right? And I didn't take it very well, and I was drinking like crazy. And I was running around acting reckless, and I started selling drugs again. And I reverted back to a lot of behaviors that I had not participated in since coming home from prison many years prior. Okay. And I'm not proud of that. And I wound up getting popped in the parking lot of my apartments with drugs on me. Right. I had some coke on me. I had some pills on me. It was during the virus, thankfully. So I wasn't arrested. I was cited. I was given a court date. And that was it. Cops drove off, right? Took my drugs and left. I had my kids with me at the time. They were upstairs sleeping. They weren't aware of anything that happened. This happened downstairs, right? I was just outside of my apartment. But nonetheless, it happened. Well, I didn't go tell my kids' mom. I didn't tell my kids. I didn't do any of that. I was trying to handle my shit privately. Like, whoop, reality check, right? And I got wrote up for misdemeanor possession. Then I went to court. They upgraded it to felony possession. I was able to Prop 36 it because I hadn't been in trouble in so long, and it was just a simple dope case. Wound up going to an outpatient program, and that's where I got clean off alcohol. Right? I didn't have a drug problem. I had a drug dealing problem. I didn't have a drug problem, but I very much had an alcohol problem. And going to that program really helped highlight that. And so it all worked out the way that it was supposed to work out. Nonetheless, my kid's mom found out like 7 months later about that arrest. And because it had been posted like little local Facebook groups or whatever, I don't know. Somehow somebody seen it. Oh, isn't this your dude or whatever, and sent it to her. And she went bananas, right? And she filed this motion with the court, saying all kinds of stuff. And I don't blame her. To be fair, she was scared, right? She didn't know that side of me. That is not my behavior in my years home from prison. Quite the opposite, in fact. She had heard about how I was before prison, but she didn't know me from then. And so I think she panicked. And I had my kids, on paper, I had them 50-50, right? We have joint legal custody, joint physical custody. But time allotment wise, I had them far more than she did. She was still going to nursing school. She was running around doing her thing. And I never turned down the opportunity to have them. So I wound up having them in my actual presence a lot more than she did, right? And that was true before that arrest. That was true after that arrest. So when we go to court, right? So this paper, if you were to read just that paper, I sound horrible, right? I sound like I'm trapping with my kids in the car with me and all kinds of other shit, right? And gang banging and shootouts and violence and all kinds of stuff. When we went to court, the judge was like, hey, but this was 7 months ago. You're just saying something because you learned of this happening. But your kids have been over there like 80% of the time for all this time, and you haven't had any issues with their care or their treatment or their well-being or anything else. So, like, that's a criminal issue that he's got to deal with in criminal court, but that's not a family court issue, right? My point is this. In family court, anybody can say anything. Then there comes a time when you got to actually prove it. You got to demonstrate that. I worked on a family court case for a guy his girlfriend, the mother of his kids, assaulted him in the parking lot of a store. Assaulted him, was banging on his windows, scratching up his car, just went bananas. Other people called the cops, right? Cops come, she runs inside the store, tries to hide in the bathroom. They go in there, they find her, they pull her out. She gets arrested for domestic violence, okay? She goes down to the police station, she gets booked, and then she gets released. And she files for a restraining order against him and claims that he had been stalking her and abusing her and hitting her and all kinds of stuff. Mind you, he didn't ever lay a hand on her. She's just getting out of jail for putting hands on him and his property and everything else, right? But yet she's filing paper where if you look at that paper, it looks like he beats the shit out of her and stalks her and harasses her, okay? Now, of course, when you got to go to court later and defend that temporary restraining order, the judge is like, get the fuck out of here. So my point is, family court paperwork is not the same, in my view, as criminal court paperwork. The family court paperwork that matters is what does the judge say, okay? Not what mom says about dad or dad says about mom. But what does the judge say? And we know what the judge said. In this case, is there more to the story? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We'll look at the paperwork here in just a second. I'll make another quick note, right? It again, just kind of my own reflection. And I think some of you guys will be able to probably relate to this because I don't think it's all that unusual. From a young age, I wasn't around my mom a lot, and, she had a drug problem, right, for a long time. And she was a child who had a child. I don't blame her for that stuff. Now I have at various points in my life, but, I'm grown, now, but I wasn't around her a lot as a kid. And she prioritized other men over me, right? I was the least important boy in her life. And again, I don't blame her for that she had her own demons she was trying to figure out. And she was not set up for success in life any more than I was. And so I wouldn't be around her a lot. And I'd be around my dad. And my dad don't really have no family. My dad's last name used to be his first name. Like he is not connected whatsoever to his family, his bloodline, his history, none of that shit. Right? But he was together with a woman who he's still married to now, my stepmom. Love her very much. She comes from a big family in Daly City and well established, right? She was normal. And so when they started going to court, the court favored him because he was with her and she was stable, right? If it wasn't for her, I would have just thrown in foster care, and I was with my grandma before that and everything. So my point is, at a young age, for a while, I was around my dad and my stepmom's family, but they were very different. And I wasn't around my mom. And I was around my grandma, my mom's side of the family, but not so much her. She wasn't around. And so as I had these issues and I was trying to figure out where I fit in and just normal kid stuff, I missed my mom a lot, And I would hear little stuff about her and even her family, would say shit about her sometimes, but they were all messed up too and going to jail and doing drugs and all that shit, And I always thought the grass was going to be greener. It's somebody come rescue me. Life wasn't too great over here. And I wanted my grandma to rescue me and then the courts got involved. Said, my mom, one day she's going to be my knight in shining armor. And I would get to be around her sometimes for real short periods of time. And she, it'd be lots of promises, and this how it's going to be. And she had an agenda. My dad had an agenda. My stepmom had an agenda. And the court had an agenda. And I was in play therapy and the therapist. Everybody had a fucking agenda. And I had an agenda too. But I was a little kid. And there was a lot of things going on that was above my pay grade. I was much younger than what Gunner's daughter is now. But stuff happens. And it's a toxic, emotional, fragile place to be for everybody. But I think the only sympathetic person in that situation is the child, and I don't know the specifics. Obviously, none of us do of Gunner's daughter and her conversations with these people or those people or how she is here or how she is there or whatever. And there's a part of me that honestly that just feels fucked up even sitting here talking about some 13-year-old girl that I don't even know, but I'm not the one that introduced this conversation to YouTube. Um, but maybe if we can just get a little more perspective on this shit, you know, maybe the conversation can quiet down a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. I so I get that though. You know, I'd heard a little bit of what Gunner was talking about. Man, she was over there and you know, they was getting in her ear and this and that. And that stuff sounds reasonable to me. I don't know for sure what happened. But I can relate to being the kid in that situation. And it's fucked up, man. Right? Because, you know, even at 13, 14, whatever, you know, you're still a child. You know, I have a 14-year-old daughter. You know, my son will be 13 next month. Um, they're still growing. They're developing. There's puberty and hormones, and they're trying to figure out who they are. And young girls need their moms, you know, but they need a healthy mom to be clear, right? And they need their dads too. Don't get me wrong. It's it's just ugly, you know. And so to come on here, and initially I felt like a lot of the responsibility was at Gunner's feet, to be quite honest. Because when I watched his video about him coming to California, there's no two ways to look at it. Holmes. He was taking shots at his baby's mom and her dude, right, Brandon. And he would say, "Oh, I'm not going to take shots," but he was taking shots, you know. And so I was like, okay, well, these people feel like they're being attacked on social media by this dude with this big platform, so they feel like they have to defend themselves. But then I hear, oh no, well, they was taking shots earlier. They just didn't have a channel yet, and this and so I don't know. I don't know what was happening months ago or whatever. I learned of all of this just a couple days ago. Um, and I've been kind of playing catch up just on the videos that have been posted the last couple of days to try to figure out what the fuck's going on. And and so I don't know, but at some point somebody has to be the bigger person. And and if you challenge my parenting and that I'm gonna want to be defensive also. I love being a father. It's the greatest privilege in life, in my opinion. Um, and I think I'm a good dad. You know, hard to say I'm the best dad. My kids got me a mug, said best dad ever, but hard to say I'm the best. I don't know what the best looks like. Um, I try to be the best that I can. You know I make mistakes and fall short, but I love being a dad. And my kids have been a part of the channel at various times. You know, and so some of you guys have been around here for a long time. I've seen them or seen them on lives or whatever. And I don't really do that stuff so much anymore. Now they're a little bit older. They're not as interested, right? They could give a shit less. But uh, you know, I get the urge to want to defend yourself, but they gotta prioritize the child, you know, over your own ego. Um, Again, accusations. You gonna tell me somebody's doing this, man? You got to prove it to me. I'm not gonna take your word for it. Not on something like that. I would expect that same courtesy by people who don't know me in return as well, and I think we all would. You know, um, and and again, I'm not saying that nothing happened. You know, but I just haven't seen anything that tells me that something happened, and there's just a lot of people jaw jacking, it's back and forth. And I'll tell you something about family court. This video's getting a little long, but like I said, I have some experience with family court. And in my experience, do CPS mess it up sometimes? Yes. Sure they do. Right? They don't always get it right. And judges don't always get it right away either. And sometimes it's an uphill battle. But 2 point. I'm gonna make a point about getting lawyers and I'm gonna make a point about judges. You know, my kid's mom had a lawyer for family court, right from jump. We did the divorce and then the child custody stuff. For the divorce, I was like, fuck you, guy, everything. I don't need to care. And then the family stuff, we had an arrangement, but then she went and got a lawyer. And when she got the lawyer convinced her that the arrangement her and I had, no, you should pursue this arrangement, which I wasn't going to do. Right. So I was like, fuck it, we fighting. let's go. I never got a lawyer. I got a lawyer for my last hearing, just on the child support because they have this whole math algorithm thing that I didn't quite understand. And so for one hearing, I had an attorney come in just because they understood that shit better than me. But other than that, I never had a judge. I mean, I never had a lawyer. And I would tell my kid's mom, hey, your lawyer ain't doing you no favors. Because she would put out crazy shit. And she would want wild stuff and just say all kinds of wild things. That lawyer had her own axe to grind. She was just a man hater, Holmes. And I don't know what happened between her and various men in her life or whatever the case may be. But it got so bad that at the end, she actually not lost permanently, but she was suspended from being able to practice law for I think 6 months as a sanction because she just colored way outside the lines and went and got really carried away. And so I called her on it. So getting a lawyer doesn't always help because lawyers have their own agendas too sometimes, and they want to use your case to prove their point. But where a lawyer does help is you're not so emotionally invested. It's this child stuff, this family stuff, everything else. I don't care what type of person you are, it's emotional. And what can wind up happening when you don't have attorneys is you just want to air it all out, especially if you feel like you haven't been heard or if you feel like you're being attacked or whatever. Like, I know my mom felt like a lot of times she wasn't heard and she was being attacked because she didn't have the same supports that other adults in my life had. She didn't have the same credibility because of how she was living and what she was doing. And like, she was doing it to herself, which didn't mean she was a bad person. She just wasn't, she didn't have the same ammunition, right? And so she wanted to talk about everything, want to air out everything. Just wild shit. That doesn't help you in court. Not in family court. Family court judges have heard it all. Every accusation, every lie, every truth, every claim, every argument. But people go in there and they, well, she did this to me and he did this to me and he cheated with her and she sucked his this and smoked that and he don't work. And what about this dude? And well, look what he did to his last girlfriend and look at the last dude. That's why she been married before. Like, none of that shit has to do with the kid. But when you do that, right, whether it's on paper or it's in person, when you do that and you just want to throw the whole kitchen sink because you want to make your case, you're going to prove your point. You're a good person, they're a bad person, and you're going to make it clear. The judge puts you in a box, right, mentally. You get put into a box. And you get put in the box of the unstable person, right? You're the person who doesn't want to be there, okay? You're the one that still has an axe to grind. You want to litigate your whole past relationship. You want to litigate your life. You want to litigate everything. You want to do all that. Okay, we'll put you over here. Just quiet down. What do you have to say? Hey, man, just whatever's best for the child, right? And I'm not trying to take the child away from the other parent. Maybe if there's concerns about why the other parent shouldn't have 50-50, whatever. Okay, here's what those concerns are. But then how do we work towards that? Because that is the ultimate goal. I just want to do it in such a way that my child is protected. Okay, there's the adult in the room. There's the reasonable person. Whether you have an attorney or not, there's the reasonable person. The judge is like, here's somebody I can talk to, right? That was my experience. And it's crazy because in my case, but it's not really that my kid's mom was all that crazy. It's that her lawyer was that fucking crazy. And she felt like since she was a lawyer, she'll just follow her. And there's other stuff going on. But so all this is not good. All this is not healthy. And this is going to be on the internet forever. I bet this little girl is feeling some type of way right now. And my guess is she's probably blaming herself. And as a parent, I don't want my kid blaming themselves for being in a situation where they're in over their head, because of other adults, regardless of whose side, you may be on, right? It's just not a good look. Go through the system. Go through the court system. Work that shit out. Figure it out in there. This social media stuff, it's not helping a case for any of them. Not for Gunner, not for Brandon, not for the BM, not for this social media stuff is not helping you. YouTube videos don't mean near as much in court as I think sometimes people believe that they do, right? They really don't. But it's just not a good look. But what it does mean and matters something is when that girl goes to school and maybe she doesn't have TikTok, but her friend does. And it's like, hey, ain't that your dad? Hey, ain't that your mom? Hey, I heard you was in California. Was you in California with this dude? No, man. I don't ever want my kids to be in that situation. And I don't think any parent in their right mind does. And so this is going to take a long time for healing to happen in this family. And it's going to take patience, and it's going to take therapy, and it's going to take years, and it's going to take grace, and it's going to take not having to be right. And it's going to take the parents not taking shots at each other and not feeling like they have to prove something to the other one and just focusing on her. And social media makes all of that much more difficult for everybody. Again, man, you attack my parenting and I'm going to want to, bite back also. But as parents, we sacrifice, right? And we sacrifice for the greater good, and the greater good is our children. You got to sacrifice your ego and your pride and what people may think about you or what's being said in the comments, and let that shit, hey, it's going to be what it's going to be, right? Gunner's channel is not going to fall apart because of these accusations, and this dude Brandon's channel is not going to blow up because of these accusations. Like this, at the end of the day, neither one of those things are going to change, right? Not that I think channels should factor into this. Like that shouldn't be a part of the conversation. We're talking about a child, but anyways, let me it's been 30 minutes. Let me start this paperwork real quick. Not gonna take very long. This is really not a lot to it, but Juanita Alvarez, respondent, Leonard Vidari, petitioner. So this is a court hearing that Gunner applied for. Gunner filed the paperwork for this court hearing to happen, right? He's a petitioner. She's the respondent. Probably because they filed all the paperwork. They filed the stuff saying that they were going to hold on to her. So somebody specially appearing on behalf of the Merced DA's office child abduction unit, appearing as minors counsel, custodial party present in the courtroom. Discussion is had by the court and the parties present as to the case status. Each party has received and read the confidential declaration, report, and argument of minors counsel. Minors counsel is going to be an attorney. Normally, it's an attorney that specializes in like child welfare type stuff, so they have experience with this. And they're going to talk to the kid, and they're going to do their little investigation, and then they're going to present a report to the judge. And then the parents, the other parties, all the parties get to see what that report says, but they don't get to influence what that report says. That is a confidential report that's written on their assessment of the child, right? The kid has said this, the kid has said that. This is what I think. These should be the next steps, blah, blah, blah. Each party was given an opportunity to be heard. Party previously joined to the case, who has been acting as the custodial parent for the last few weeks, is present in court. I'm assuming that that's the aunt, right? I saw Gunner's video where he said that when the mother and the boyfriend had filed all those allegations and said that they weren't going to be returning the child, or they weren't going to be meeting up to hand the child off in Grants Pass. In fact, they were filing all this stuff in court, that they had an emergency hearing, that at that hearing, the judge assigned custodial responsibility to Gunner's aunt, who lived in the area. So that's my guess on who that is. Informs the court she is no longer able to house the minor due to her husband's medical issues. The court directs the clerk to call somebody. Somebody informs the court that she is able to house the minor child if she is returned to Oregon. So Gunner says that's his sister, who lives down the street from him. The court directs the clerk to join, I'm assuming the sister, as a party to the case, because now that the kid's going to be staying with her, she is now also a part of the case. The court orders. Court reviews the file and finds that the child has lived in Oregon for 8 years. The father has maintained sole. Hold on now. The father has maintained sole. I gotta come all the way here. Legal and custody. It should say physical, but sole legal and physical custody. The court ordered records from CPS in Merced County and Portland, Oregon. The Merced County CPS records are old, and they referred it to Portland for investigation. So there is some CPS records from the past, but they're old, and since the kid's been out there 8 years, they probably figured they're not relevant anymore. Who knows what those CPS records say? And also, just to be clear, you can have CPS records without there ever actually being an allegation of abuse, right? Or substantiated finding of abuse. CPS gets called by neighbors, by coworkers. CPS can be called by anybody. And they'll come in. If they're called, they have an obligation to come in and check things out. And then they keep a case open for X amount of time afterwards, even if they didn't find any fault when they responded, right? So having an open CPS case does not mean that there was a confirmation of some type of misbehavior. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. It just means that they were called and that they responded. The CPS records from the state of Oregon indicated that as of 8/15/24, they would look through their file and send any records within 5 days. None have been received. The court finds that all information concerning this child is in Portland, Oregon. There are allegations. This part's important. There are allegations being made without any specificity or proof that any of it is true. So things are being said, but you can't specify. It's not like on this date this happened. There's no proof. It's not like, oh, she got punched in the eye. Here's a picture of her wounded eye the day after she got punched. Any of that stuff. There is a history that this happened before. This meaning allegations. There's a history that this happened before and allegations were deemed unfounded. I think that's interesting, right? Because the court is saying, this isn't a person saying. This isn't Gunner saying there's allegations before. This isn't Brandon or the BM saying there's allegations before. This is the court saying, hey, allegations have been made in the past, just like there's allegations being made now. When they were made in the past, they were deemed unfounded, which means that they were just allegations, but they weren't supported by evidence or facts. The court believes this case will be more effectively handled in Portland, Oregon. Right, because the kid, and that's what should be expected to happen because the child doesn't live in California. Right, so even though there's a history of a case in Stanislaus County involving the child, and apparently there's orders from 2022, right? The child's been in Oregon for a long time. She's an Oregon resident. She goes to school in Oregon. She lives in Oregon. Her father has sole legal custody of her. He lives in Oregon. So she's an Oregon child. And California really doesn't have jurisdiction over her. The court defers jurisdiction of Portland, Oregon, as this court does not have the ability to access the information. The father shall maintain sole legal custody, with his sister, I'm guessing, having physical custody until such time as orders are made in Portland, Oregon. So we're going to go to court in Oregon. Then the judge is going to decide, does the child need to remain outside of Gunner's home? Right? Does the child go back to Gunner's home? Does the child go with the mom? Who knows? Right? The judge will decide. But that's going to be up to that judge to look at and figure out at the time. I will say when it comes to legal custody, and this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize, but I always encourage everybody, parents, don't give up your legal custody. Even if you don't have physical custody, you don't give up legal custody, because sole legal custody means that Gunner can change schools with her, can move with her. I mean, maybe not right now because I have this little case thing going on, but in general, he could change her schools, he could change her doctors, he could put her in counseling, he could take her out of counseling, he could move her to another state, he could change her religion, he could do whatever the fuck he wants. And the mom has no say-so at all because she has no legal custody. Joint legal custody is like, hey, we need to talk about it before that happens, right? If you want to move, if you want to start, having them practice some other religion, if you want to whatever, we have to talk about it. And then if we don't come to an agreement, then we go to court and the court decides what happens. So having no legal custody, you have no I don't want to say you don't have any parental rights because that's a separate category, but pretty fucking close. Um, it's saying that you as a parent, for whatever reason, you're not responsible enough to have a voice in what your child's well-being in terms of their health, their location, their school, their any of that stuff. You don't even get a voice. You can still have visitation, you can still have phone calls, you're still the mom or the dad if it's flipped. But so him having sole legal custody, that's something. That's something. I'll put it that way. The minor to be assessed immediately by a counselor. That's the wisest thing. And maintained in counseling for as long as the counselor feels is appropriate. The father shall provide the mother with the counselor's information. And that's good, right? Because then the parents are to be involved in counseling at the direction of the counselor. So that's good. If she gets a good counselor, then they'll decide how to do this. Like I said, this is going to take years to heal. It's going to take years. And it's going to take sacrifice by everybody involved. And it's going to take both parents. If everybody really has the best interest of the child and not themselves, it's going to take everybody working together and setting themselves to the side and wrapping their arms around that kid and that kid feeling safe and protected and loved, right? And heard and valued. And that takes work. That takes work. If raising a child in a healthy 2-parent, well-established household is difficult, let alone when it's not that way. Court reviews a 12/22 order in open court with the parties, clarifies the order as follows. A minor should have open telephone conversation with the mother. The mother may call the minor every day between the hours of 6 and 7. Remaining orders remain in full force and effect. Court orders the mother to have visitation with the minor today between 4 and 5 at the minor's counsel's office. Then after that, the minor's counsel is relieved, right? And yeah, it is an attorney. Attorney so-and-so is relieved as minor's counsel because the kid's going back to Oregon, and so that's where the jurisdiction will be. So that's all the paperwork says. It doesn't, there's no confirmation of abuse there. It's kind of like, hey man, look, the kid goes back to Oregon. The kid goes to therapy. The mom has the number to the therapist. The kid goes and stays with the aunt. And you guys need to go to court out there. But that means that Brandon and the mom are going to have to be going up to Oregon to go to court. Which is probably going to be a strain on them. But that's where the child's been all this time. That's what you got to do. And so I just hope, maybe I could add a little clarity to some of the stuff in this video, but then also I just hope there's no more videos about this subject, man. I definitely don't anticipate making any. I wish the best for the kid. I wish the best for the child. And I hope that the parents keep this shit off of social media and focus on their child. That's all. That being said, man, help others move to excellence. That's what homies do. You guys take care.